Hello guys, welcome back in Goku Manhwa channel. Let's continue. Seon and Jungwook were still standing together, close to each other, when she noticed that he was holding something in his hand. The moment her eyes fell on it, her whole body felt like it had shaken. Whatever he was holding was enough to make her heart skip, and she could not hide her reaction. She asked him where he had even gotten something like that. Jungwook answered calmly that he had bought it while shopping, but even though his voice sounded steady, his eyes were filled with expectation. He was clearly waiting, hoping that Seon would accept it and say yes. Seon did not respond immediately. She let out a small sigh, as if she was trying to process everything at once. Then she finally said that she would not say no to it. Hearing that, Jungwook looked at her again, this time with even more emotion in his eyes. The atmosphere between them changed slightly, becoming heavier and more intimate. Slowly, he reached out and held her hand, making her feel both surprised and aware of how close they were. While still holding her hand, Jungwook told her that he would visit her home that night. The words made Seon freeze for a moment. She looked confused, not fully understanding what that meant or why he was saying it so suddenly. Jungwook then told her to go out first because he needed to stop by the bathroom before leaving. She watched him walk away, noticing that he was still holding onto the item he had shown her earlier. Left alone, Seon stood there feeling both confused and strangely amused by everything that had just happened. Her eyes returned to the protection he had shown her, and her thoughts went to the idea of tonight with Jungwook. The thought alone made her nervous. Her heartbeat began to rise, and she could feel the tension building inside her chest as she imagined what the night might bring. As time passed, night finally arrived. It was a very dark night, and by then everyone else had already drunk and fallen asleep. The house was quiet, filled with deep silence. Seon was in her room, lying down and sleeping, when suddenly she heard a noise coming from the door. The sound cut through the stillness, pulling her out of her sleep and making her heart start to race again. Seon heard her own name in her dream, and in that dream someone was calling out to her. For a moment it felt real, and then suddenly she woke up from her sleep. Her eyes opened wide as confusion rushed over her. Inside her mind, she wondered what had just happened and when she had even fallen asleep. Everything felt strange and slightly blurry. Slowly, her memory returned to her, and she realized she must have fallen asleep because she had drunk too quickly earlier. The nervousness she had been feeling all evening must have made it even easier for her to lose control and drift off like that. As she lay there, she remembered how she had earlier managed to get Pilsing and Jungwook out of the way. The thought of that made her heart feel uneasy again. Just then, a voice came from the other side of the door. Someone was calling Seon's name and asking if she was asleep. It was Jungwook, waiting outside for her to open the door. Hearing his voice made her heart beat faster. She looked toward the door, still confused and a little flustered, and told him that she was not ready yet. She quickly tried to calm herself. At least she had brushed her teeth before going to bed, which made her feel slightly relieved. She checked her breath, making sure it did not smell bad. Then she reached back and checked her back pocket, confirming that the protection was still there. Knowing that it was with her made her feel a little more grounded, even though her nervousness did not fade. Slowly, Seon stood up. Every small movement felt heavier because of how aware she was of Jungwook waiting just outside the door. After a brief pause, she finally opened it and saw Jungwook standing there. Seeing him in front of her made her feel shy all over again. Even so, she told him to come in, her voice still carrying that nervous softness. As he stepped inside, Seon asked if everyone was already asleep. She needed to know if anyone else was awake and could hear them. Jungwook answered that she had put everyone to sleep, reminding her of what had happened earlier. Hearing that made her realize how quiet and still the house had become, making the moment between them feel even more intense. Jungwook teased Seon in a gentle and cute way, reminding her that she had made everyone drink so much. His tone was light, but the way he looked at her made her feel shy and aware of how close they were standing. Seon lifted her eyes to look at him again, and in that moment, the space between them felt smaller than before. Jungwook slowly placed his hands on her waist and pulled her closer, just close enough for her to feel his presence more clearly. The closeness made her heart beat faster, and she could not look away from him. Jungwook told her that she looked perfectly fine and asked what she was waiting for him for. Hearing that made Seon feel even more nervous. She dropped her gaze to the ground, unable to meet his eyes right away, and admitted that she had fallen asleep too. Her voice was soft, and her words came out slowly. After a brief moment, She looked back up at him again, and their eyes met. The eye contact between them became deep and intense. They were standing so close that they could feel each other's breath. Everything around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them in that quiet, heavy moment. It was clear how strong their feelings were, how much they were drawn to each other, and how deeply in love they were. Seon finally spoke again, saying that even though she had fallen asleep, she had still waited. Those words made the moment even more emotional. Without breaking their gaze, they leaned closer to each other, and their lips met in a kiss. Jungwook's eyes were red as they kissed, showing how overwhelmed and full of emotion he was in that moment. Seon and Jungwook stayed wrapped around each other for a long time, neither of them wanting to be the first to pull away. Their closeness felt warm and deep, like their hearts were moving closer even before their bodies did. The way they held each other showed how much they were drawn to one another, how hard it was to let go when being together felt this natural. Jungwook leaned closer, his face near her neck, and the small space between them filled with quiet emotion. Seon felt her breath grow unsteady, not because of fear, but because of how strong everything felt. She told him she was not ready to give him an answer yet. What she meant was whether she was ready to fully choose him, even though her heart already leaned in his direction. Jungwook told her that he had not come there for an answer. Hearing that made the moment feel even more intense. It was as if he was saying that he was there simply because he wanted to be with her, not to pressure her, but to feel close to her. That thought made Seon's chest tighten in a soft, emotional way. They stood close, feeling each other's warmth and presence. Every small movement, every breath, made the moment feel heavier and more meaningful. Seon could feel how deeply Jungwook was focused on her, and she knew her own feelings were just as strong. He asked her to stay quiet, not in a harsh way, but as if he wanted the moment to be shared without words. Slowly, they moved toward the bed, still holding on to each other. Seon leaned back, her heart beating fast, while Jungwook stayed close above her. The way he hovered over her made her feel both safe and overwhelmed with emotion. It was not just desire, but the closeness, the connection, and the feeling of being wanted that made everything so powerful. Seon held on to the protection she had kept, making sure that even in such an emotional moment, things stayed safe. Even though her feelings were intense and her heart wanted Jungwook badly, she still cared enough to be careful. Her desire to be with him was strong enough that it felt like she would push past her own limits just to stay in that moment with him, just to feel that closeness and that love. Made the moment feel heavier and more meaningful. Seon could feel how deeply Jungwook was focused on her, and she knew her own feelings were just as strong. The way he hovered over her made her feel both safe and overwhelmed with emotion. It was not just desire, but the closeness, the connection, and the feeling of being wanted that made everything so powerful. Seon